We're talking about clowns here. So, like I said, 2016 clown sightings happened, and the connections happened in my brain. All the synapses fired, and I knew there's something to do with clowns, jesters, Nephilim, and demons. There's something here. Just from all these experiences, the research I've been doing, my own walk through life, and things I'd seen, like the Jester vision and the Hat Man vision, which, by the way, when I had the dream of that Hat Man, he looked like some kind of psychedelic Morris dancer pimp.
Bodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Bodega and sharing one of yours. Click that like. Yeah! If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. Long ago, rebellion erupted in the heavens. 1/3 of the angels, captivated by desire and defiance, cast aside their loyalty to the Creator and descended to earth. Known as the Watchers, these fallen angels took mortal women as partners, and from their forbidden union, the Nephilim were born. Giant, monstrous beings that terrorized humanity. The Nephilim were like nothing seen before, towering giants with both earthly strength and otherworldly knowledge. These abominations, inheritors of angelic and human traits alike, wielded secrets and powers that reshaped the course of humanity. They were said to be warriors, wise men, and some Nephilim became cannibals, ravenously feasting upon the flesh of humankind. Their insatiable hunger, a dark reflection of the rebellion that birthed them. They wield forbidden knowledge and powers beyond human understanding, shaping our civilization, but also plunging it into chaos, fear, for they existed outside the laws of both heaven and earth. Hey everyone, I'm Rai, the Bodega, guiding you into this terrifying shadow of ancient history. But we're not alone. Today, joining us is Paul Stobbs, author of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. Through his fascinating research, Paul will unravel the chilling truth of these beings, not only as giants who once walked the earth, but also revealing why all things they resembled clowns. Together, we'll dig deeper into this eerie connection and seek to understand what these symbols mean for us today. All right, everyone. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of the show as usual. Leaving reviews and subscribing to the channel. That means everything. Sharing the channel as well. It's amazing. So like I said, I want to say thanks for tuning into the Bodega's Codex of Curiosities. If you're enjoying the show and you want to dive in even deeper into these strange, mysterious topics, make sure to check out my Patreon. I'm posting more content and extra shows there just for you, covering even more mind-bending mysteries you won't want to miss out. And if you're looking to rep the Codex in style, swing by my store and check out some sweet, cool merch. Check out some of these awesome shirts waiting for you. All right. So without further ado, let's bring Paul to the stage. Paul, welcome to Bodega's Codex of Curiosities.
Hi, Rai. Thanks for having me. I've got to say that intro is a spine tingling, isn't it? I got into that then. The music and the sounds and the little T-shirt roll you had there got me going as well for a second.
I literally just made that T-shirt roll like 2 hours ago. So it was, I'm like, I got to show people what I got. I can tell them, hey, I got shirts, but until you see it, sometimes you get an idea of what it is. So yeah, thanks. I try to give it a bit of a production value instead of just being like, hey, yeah.
That was good. Well done. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
You've got me going. I'm excited to go now. You've got me raring to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is exactly where we want this to be. So, Paul, why don't you tell my listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself so they get acquainted? You know, I know a little bit already, but let's tell them so they know who you are and where they can find you as well.
Sure. So my name's Paul Stobbs. I am an author of a book called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, but that's only recently. I only published it at the in July. 2024. So if whoever's listening for when they're listening, but that was only a few months ago. Prior to that, I am a YouTuber for 10 years with a channel called Understanding Conspiracy. I'm what you call a scattershot conspiracy theorist who talks about anything and everything to do with the concept of conspiracy, including getting a little bit retrospective about the culture of conspiracy as well, the factions within the whole overarching thing, and just where we can find truth. And I am a Christian conspiracy theorist first and foremost. And we'll get into it today, but a lot of my testimony and my story and this book we're going to talk about is all kind of melded together to how I got to the Christian angle and how I believe that's the truth. So my channel is mainly focused around that kind of stuff. But yes, currently I am the guy who published the book called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. I have a 44 episode series dedicated to it, spanning over 8 years. It started in 2016 and the idea just snowballed into a book. I didn't see it coming either. I know how ridiculous it sounds, but it's just one of those things where you start scratching just under the surface and it just becomes a deep well of information and knowledge. So that's me summed up pretty quick.
And where can they find you? Like what is your YouTube channel called? And also, you know, where can they find your book as well?
Sure. So the channel's called Understanding Conspiracy. You can't miss it. It's the only channel called that I'm aware. It's got a big bright star logo as well, so you can see that too. And the book is on Amazon. So if you want to get the book, you just type it on Amazon. It's self-published. Just type in The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, and you will find the book. It looks like this here. Can't miss it. I've just put this picture up today. I've just decorated the office. I've literally painted the office, got it all sorted. I've moved into a new house, and I've just quickly slapped these two pictures up on the wall here to have something to frame me. So
I know. I actually don't have anything to put up at this moment. I have my frame drum up behind me. I'm like, okay, that's good enough for now as well. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I need to do some decorating and painting. I think I want to paint this wall as well, but we'll see what happens when that time comes.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. So, and I love that you're all into every other, like a shotgun kind of conspiracy theorist. That I find myself the exact same way. You know, that's one of the things that I, you know, kind of started. Well, I won't say that started down this path, but that kind of was like the snowball almost in a way. You know, I had a lot of experiences seeing things, UFOs, and shadows. We'll call them shadows, shadow people, beings. But conspiracies really is what really got me hooked. And it wasn't until recently that I started, maybe in the last couple of years, you know, reading and learning about the Nephilim and, you know, Gary Wayne, L.A. Marzulli, just to name a few, fantastic. But this is a completely different take. How did this come about? How did it come about that this connection between clowns, which you know, most people will say they find creepy. It's kind of one of those things that it's this like strange fear, strange phobia people have, and maybe that's like ingrained in us. But I'd like to hear where this came from.
Well, you know, I'm not trying to make a cheesy pun here, but the theory is really built off the shoulders of giants. You know, it comes before people who did greater work than me on this for many years. So people like Gary Wayne, as you mentioned, who's referenced in my book quite a few times, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. People like Rob Skiba, L.A. Marzulli, all the big names throughout the years who've been talking about the Nephilim and the Christian conspiracy sphere really encapsulated my attention in like the 2014, 2016 period of time during conspiracy, which was what I call the golden age of conspiracy online. You know, that's when everything was going down for the first time and all the major big secrets were coming out and everyone was learning everything, you know, and it was kind of post end of the world 2012 time, you know, and everyone thought the Mayan calendar was coming to an end, you know, and the world was going to end. And that was kind of that was my nexus point that brought me into conspiracy at all, to be honest. Prior to that, I was studying my degree at university, and in 2011, I was a psychedelic explorer of consciousness, shall we say, a typical art student, very stereotypical art student, you know, weed smoking, drug taking, partying every night type of art student. And that's what I was doing at that young age. I must have been 21, 22 or something. And I was searching for answers, searching for the nature of reality through these means, these drugs. But I was also kind of swimming in Eastern philosophy, you know, and the Tao and things like this, and listening to philosophers like Terence McKenna or Alan Watts. And I was trying to basically get to grips with understanding consciousness. So I was already of that mind before conspiracy got in, you know, and I was very much analytical. I would say pseudoscience. I was analytical about it. I wasn't like hippy dippy loosey goosey type of person. I didn't have dreadlocks and didn't shower or anything, or walk around barefoot with the crystals in my pocket. I wasn't that type of guy, you know. But I was certainly taking these chemicals during my university experience and a few years prior to document and focus on what was happening and make artwork about it. And then I stumbled into, because you inadvertently just kind of slip into conspiracy topics when you start getting in that kind of psychedelic new age realm, and they're always talking about, you know, consciousness expansion, the third eye, the pineal gland, sacred geometry, and look at the nature of the universe, and you start seeing all these things, you know. And as an artist, and I was like, wow, well, this is incredible. And I guess I kind of understood through my own experiences, so there's definitely a creator here, there's a god. You could see the design, it's clear as day. And a lot of people obviously humor ideas like holographic universe theory and quantum physics and the observer double slit experiment stuff. And, you know, we're all collectively creating reality with our consciousness through perception or whatever. You know, you humor all those ideas.
Yeah.
And I kind of, while swimming in that, I started to hear about the 2012 end of the world Mayan calendar stuff. I was listening to documentaries like the Zeitgeist telling me that Jesus was the sun god and all this type of stuff. And none of that really sat right with me. You know, it was a bit like, it was interesting, but I was like, I'm sure there's more to the story of Jesus than he was just some sun god. I'm pretty sure I remember reading more about that, you know. But that was enough for me at the time. I wasn't really interested in getting religious. Wasn't raised Christian or anything, you know. I was a pretty a-religious family. Not, I wouldn't say atheist or anything. They just didn't think about it. Just working class people who didn't have time to think about that kind of thing, you know. So I wasn't raised in like a religious household, but I was certainly searching for these answers, and I just had to know. So what are people seeing that's making them think the world's going to end in 2012? And that's it then. Big, huge, slippery slope down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, discovering one thing after another. You know, secret societies control the world, and they're drinking the blood of children, and all sorts of horror. It gets darker and darker as time goes on, you know. And that kind of messed me up a little bit. I'm not going to lie, as it tends to do when you first discover the truth for the first time, you know. And you go around trying to wake everybody up, and you.
I totally agree. You're trying to wake everybody up, and they're like, "You're nuts." And
absolutely, yeah.
But then you also have like these with your epiphanies and with these awakenings, you have death as well. Like the dying of who you were is now being, so you can be reborn into this new. I don't want to say well, it is like a persona, you know, this new reality, this new life, because you're going to see everything differently then from then on.
Sure. So I realized this very quickly, though. It's kind of like, oh, people don't want to know the truth. They don't want to be told these things. And I found that actually very fascinating. I was very much into psychology, you know, and these type of things growing. So it fascinated me that there was this group of people out there with this very important information that's very true, and the evidence is overwhelming that they're onto something here. We really are in trouble, you know, and no one wants to listen to them. I'm like, why? And I looked at them and I realized, oh, it's because they look insane. It's because they sound crazy and they look crazy and they say stupid things and they present all the information in a really over-the-top, dramatic, stupid ways. Of course, no one's going to listen to it. Like it's like the right information in the wrong hands. I kind of realized it's not the information necessarily. It's the people selling the information are flawed. It's kind of, no one wants to listen to the guy who looks like a smelly, crazy dreadlock hippie screaming from the rooftop. You know what I mean? They want,
especially when you're like super intense as well. When like I've learned I have to try to reel that back in, because you know, people don't want to hear it when you're just like, hey, you got to hear this. And they're like, oh my God, you're crazy. take my money, run away. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what really encapsulated me about the movement. I really empathized with the truth of culture because I was one of them. Now I'm a believer, and I'm like, but no one's listening. What are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna get this information out? Because what we're doing is failing miserably, So I kind of started the channel as an idea called Understanding Conspiracy to try and represent these things in a way that can be relatable, that people can share quite easily, that summarizes the ideas, just gives the ideas straight as it is with the evidence that we've got, without kind of over dramatizing it, or doing that intenseness behind it, not putting silly dramatic music of Requiem for the Dream in the background, you know what I mean, and showing images of meteors smashing into the earth, and let's just cut all that stuff out and let's just talk about what we know. So that was my ethos for the channel from the very beginning, and like I said, here I am 10 years later, and it seems to have built quite a solid audience. I've got about 75,000 subs now, and I've got my own podcast called The Truth of Therapy Sessions. So just on episode 70 last week. And I get other channels on, other big content creators in the conspiracy world, to share their journey to waking up and the issues they arose when trying to tell friends and family. And we discuss how could we have done that better? That kind of talk. It's really is therapy.
Fair enough. It's kind of like the hindsight chats. Yeah.
Exactly. It really is therapy for the people listening, because it makes them feel like they're not alone. There are more people out there who believe what they believe, who don't think they're crazy. I think our culture needs more of that, because it can be quite isolating to learn the truth, So I've got my own podcast called The Truth of Therapy Sessions just for that. I've just uploaded an official podcast form through an RSS feed now. I've been doing that for the past week. So you can see the whole backlog. I've backlogged from 70 to like 39 right now. I've got a few more to upload. And all my live Q&A sessions in between have been uploaded as well, all 34 of them, where I just talk with the audience and they ask questions and we have a back and forth. So that is in podcast format now, but all of it's on the channel. There's like 500 videos on there now, going back throughout the years. But as I said, I started this channel at the end of my university degree. And I hadn't found any answers through the psychedelic stuff. I was pretty much at rock bottom, in fact. I was lost, no direction, no answers, completely burnt out through all the experimentation, exploring these realms and trying to find God and finding nothing necessarily. All I knew was there is a God, but how do I get to him? Because the drugs aren't going to get me there. That's clearly not working, And I wasn't buying the New Age stuff because I was realizing this is the New Age religion for the New World Order. So that's not going to work. But I kept bumping into the Christian perspective in all my research. It's like the Christians have a lot of answers here that are making sense. It's odd, and I'd never had any context to understand Christianity prior to conspiracy. But once you start seeing the state of the world, the Satanists, the Luciferian agendas, the Gnostic agendas, and all these type of things amalgamating together into this agenda to push mankind down a certain path towards establishing a new world order after a Revelation-style event, and you start seeing this biblical narrative playing out in front of you, it's like, oh, maybe they're onto something, So I was humoring the idea to understand the Christian angle, and I got to a point where I was desperate. I just asked God, okay, if you're real, then show me, because I've got nothing. I'm lost. I've got nothing. I don't know what's going on anymore. And like I said, the fear was kicking in. It's like, okay, so what do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, like where do I go from here? What the? Yeah.
And it's like the world's horrible. It's actually a horrible place. It was all a lie. What's going on? And since that day, I would say I became born again. I became a new creation in the image of God, as God intended me to be. And I don't do those drugs anymore. I'm married now with a second kid on the way. I've got 5 years managerial experience, and it's kind of like everything just kind of fell into place. Without me doing very little, other than just staying focused on the Word of God, reading the Bible, understanding the history, and just telling what I know to people. And during that time period after uni, 2014, I really dived into spiritual warfare stuff because I was getting spiritually attacked myself. I started having really psychedelic, demonic experiences. And it was only after I gave myself to God and asked him to help me, did this start to happen. And it was odd because I had a dream of the Hat Man, and he came to kill me. And that was documented on my channel as a full video showing with images drawn what happened there. I had an experience with sleep paralysis every other night, the old hag on the chest being choked, all sorts of horrible things, shadow people. And I was also constantly having, I wouldn't say constantly, but I was having weird moments where my mind would basically seem like it was shutting down. And the worst one was basically this moment where I collapsed, paralyzed in my mum and dad's house. I was dog sitting, of all things, just doing nothing, absolutely innocuous, just sat on the sofa, you know. And I went paralyzed. I just fell to the side. And I couldn't move. I was like, okay, this is it. And then darkness started to creep in from the corners of my vision. I was going blind. And in the moment, I was like, I'm having a stroke or something. I'm dying.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to interpret this as.
Exactly.
It's like my number's up. This is it. I'm dying. You know, and then the room started to spiral into like a chrysanthemum mandala shaped vortex, very DMT-esque, you know. And I could feel like this pull. It was bringing me into it, you know, and it didn't feel good though. All of it felt very malevolent. It felt very evil. The whole thing was terrifying, you know. No calmness or anything, you know, loving embrace. It was all very, we're killing you now type of stuff. Like, deal with it. Very cold.
Yeah.
And I managed to kind of say audibly with a croak, very quiet, Jesus help me. And instantly, bam, I'm back in the room, full control of my body. I sit up, covered in sweat, panting, like, and I'm back. And the room's back to normal. My vision, my sight's back, you know. And that was pretty much a face solidifier for me. That was one of those moments. It's like, okay, so it is real, and spiritual warfare is real, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So that sparked like into high gear more of a, I need to understand demons. I need to understand the spiritual warfare aspect of all of this. Because prior to that as well, one more thing that did happen, which led to this book, is I had a vision. Like I was at work at a call center or walking. I was doing something completely just random, nothing to trigger this, you know.
Okay.
But I had what you call a flashback in the DMT Nexus world. In the lexicon, they have this phrase called a flashback, and it's where you basically just end up in the DMT realm for no reason, like months or years after doing the drug, you know. So completely sober. And it happened to me, and I went back to the DMT realm for like 10 seconds. But this time I'm looking up, and there's this enormous jester in front of me. And I don't mean a literal silly bell wearing with a scepter dancing jester. I mean, it's an enormous black and white patterned skinned monster with a big wide purple lipped grin and this huge glowing purple golden weird looking eyes, and his head was shaped like spider's legs angled down. And it's like, it's not wearing a jester's cap, its skull is shaped like that. It's not wearing a jester's costume, its skin is that color. It was
the costume is a depiction of this creature that you've seen.
If you see a jester, that's a caricature of what I saw.
Yeah.
Cartoonish, childish imagination based on what I saw, you know. And I was looking up at this monster, and I was like, okay. And then I'm back in the room. Bam, you know. And I didn't know what to do with that then. Like I just kind of put it onto what one of my subscribers, John, calls the shelf of wonder in the back of your mind. It's like you don't quite know what to do with that amazing thing that just happened or you saw, but for now I'll put it on this shelf and I'll come back to that when I've got more knowledge. You know, that's kind of what I did with it. I suppressed it onto the shelf and just carried on with life for a little bit, and then started going into the root of demons. So where do they come from? What is this? What am I actually dealing with here from a biblical perspective? You know, because you had all these other new age stuff saying they were like multi-level interdimensional entities or reflections of the collective unconscious from a Jungian archetype perspective, or people telling me like, oh, they're ascended masters, or, you know, they're there to help you not take yourself too seriously. They're there to help teach you stuff by scaring you so you realize your ego's blah, 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 blah. I was like, no, none of that makes any sense. These things were out to kill me. These things were trying to actually murder me after I gave myself to Christ, and his name stopped it dead. So I need to take that seriously, you know. So I did. And again, I looked into the works of the giants that came before me, like Gary Wayne, Ellen Marzulli, Rob Skiba, Steve Quayle. Like, I'm trying to remember names from that period of time. There's so many people talking about it then. Yeah. That's just a few, you know. And I wouldn't say I agree with everything they all believe individually, but I was certainly interested in all of the research that was coming out at that time period, you know, and fascinated with the idea and the concept. But one thing just never sat right with me. So as your audience probably know, and you know, the Nephilim, when dead, became the demons that we have today, the disembodied spirits. Yeah. Now, the Nephilim were created through a hybridization of angel and humans. So the daughters of Cain, let's say, mixing with the sons of God, or the Watchers, the ones that were sent by God to watch over humanity. Now, from what I can gather, they were likely seraphim angels, dragons, snake-like gods, which seem to be everywhere all over the earth as depicted, you know. So it's likely they were the Watchers, the dragons, and they could take human form, but the ultimate form was like a dragon of some kind, you know, the fiery feathered serpents, or the rainbow serpents of the Aboriginals, or the dragon gods of or you know, the deities of China, or anywhere you go.
Like here in Mexico, Cucuclan and
Absolutely,
Quetzalcoatl. Yes,
they're everywhere. They're all over the place. So I think the dragons were likely the Watchers, and they're the ones who mix themselves with human women. That seems to be the generic story that kept cropping up. And every time I saw like a presentation from like Rob Skiba, let's say, it would always be like, it'd show all the giants lined up next to each other, getting bigger and bigger, and the man was at the bottom down here, and there's this big hench giant at the end of his big image, you know. And it's kind of like, but what he was using as an example for the Nephilim was like a Conan the Barbarian looking thing, like a really ripped, pectoral, tanned, dark-haired, dreadlocked man wearing a loincloth, you know what I mean, with a club in his hand or something. And it's kind of, that's very human. It's too human is what I kept thinking. That's not what they would have looked like. They would have looked like a dragon and a human slapped together. Could you imagine such a thing? Like, can we imagine such a thing? It would have been insane. It would have been terrifying to behold, you know. And I always kind of knew that. I always kind of knew that, you know, like the Nephilim would have looked weird, man. They would have looked so strange, like not like anything.
I totally agree. You know, I had one of my listeners send in a comic book that he drew called Five Stones, where it's David versus Goliath. And yeah, I will say that I was leaning to they look like large men, you know, like that was always, you know, my impression, you know, like growing up as a little kid, I grew up Catholic, and, you know, we had their kids' books of David versus Goliath, and Goliath just looked like a big, huge man. That's what it looked like. But he drew them, you know, like deformed monstrosities. And I was like, at first I was like, what are you drawing? And then I'm like, no, he's right. You know, like these abominations aren't going to look like us. No.
Well, they look kind of like us because they have half human DNA, you know. But I think the original OG Nephilim, the first half angel, half human, which grew to be size of mountains, by the way, they would have looked like psychedelic clown-looking monsters. Okay, and this is where my research has taken me, and I'll get back to that. So let's just finish off the story of how I got to the book and the idea in the series. So
for sure,
I was researching these guys, you know, talking about all these topics, and I was understanding and seeking myself in the Book of Enoch, extra biblical texts, you know, in the Book of Giants, the Book of Jasher, Jubilees, all these type of things, trying to get an idea of what the pre-flood world was like, just before the flood was like, with the mixing of kinds, where humanity was mixing themselves with animals after the Nephilim were wiped out as a punishment for the angels. It's kind of like, it was this horrible time to be alive, basically. You do not want to live during this time. Then we talk about after the flood, the giants are around again in the land of Canaan, but now they're called the Rephaim, which basically means undead one, or healed one, or resurrected one. So the Nephilim bodies have been resurrected again, and they're milling around once more somehow, you know. We just know they are there. We don't really know how, and there's many ideas and theories, which I write about in the book, all the theories and ideas of how that happened. And it's kind of, you're reading about these experiences, and it's kind of like, do we have any examples anywhere in the world of this? Do we is it just biblical history, you know, is what I was thinking. And you look at like Greek mythology, Nordic mythology, Bali, Hindu, Chinese, Australian, North and South American mythologies of this ancient time where there was dragons and monsters. And it's kind of like such variation, and nothing like what I've been shown about the Nephilim, just giant men walking around. And I realized it was staring us in the face the entire time, type of thing. Because when 2016 came along, there was this creepy clown sighting phenomena. And everyone was like absolutely terrified out of their wits, because people were standing on street corners looking like clowns and just like waving at people, you know, and brandishing a knife or a bat or something, and just making people scared. But that was silly. And obviously it was just in the build-up. It was in October, so it was just before Halloween. I think it was about to be released. So people have tried to equate it to some kind of publicity stunt for that. I think that's a likely excuse to get away with what they did, to be honest, because something similar had already happened in the 80s. And they tried to blame that on that book, It's being released. And it was like a publicity stunt for that. but the book hadn't even been the book was actually published like 3 years prior to these events in Boston. I think it was 86 or something like that, where people were going around dressed like clowns in vans trying to abduct children. And then 2016 comes along and you see these clowns hanging out by the sides of children's parks again, outside schools. So it's very similar. And they tried to blame it on it then, but the dates didn't line up. So I think it was like a reemergence of the same type of event, a ritual of some kind. And it wasn't necessarily about the silly nature of people dressing like clowns that caught my attention. It was that the news was talking about it so much. Every single minor to major news station all across the Anglosphere, wherever an English-speaking country existed, were talking about this. It was mass hysteria, you know, like, and it's kind of, why is the news picking up on a silly, nothing story, which most of them were probably just stage hoaxes anyway. Why were they doing this? And I knew by this point, nothing gets on the corner of the room in that little box unless it's meant to be there. It's all by design. It's a script, you know. They want that to be seen. It means something. There's a symbol here. There's a message within that whole thing. The clown is a symbol. It clicked in my head. The clown is something. It means something to these people. I don't know what yet, you know, but it means something. And then I had these understanding, these memories, like, okay, so DMT jesters, people see jesters when they take dimethyltryptamine in this other dimension. I saw one. There's something that looks like a jester in the other realm. I've learned by now that when the Nephilim died, they became disembodied spirits and were trapped on the earth. Is it possible these jesters are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim trapped on the earth? And when you take DMT, you're not going somewhere special. You're just opening up your perceptions wide enough to see what's just behind the veil right next to you here on this earth. You know what I mean? And they're kind of hidden from us for good reason. Because after the flood, you know, it said that Noah saw the rainbow for the first time. It's like God put a rainbow in the sky as a sign, a covenant that he would never flood the earth ever again. So rainbows just didn't exist before the flood. Like, think about that, you know, and you have to wonder why. But when you look at a rainbow, you realize it's the color spectrum. You know, it's actually our very limited visual bandwidth of color range that we can perceive. We can't perceive beyond that range. Is it possible prior to the flood we could see everything, including the spirit realm, so-called? It was all one thing, and there was no separation or visual experience of such a thing. You know, the spirit world and the physical world were one entity, and you lived within both simultaneously, just as we do now. But now we don't perceive it anymore, and we only limit ourselves to that minor bandwidth. Well, is that a mercy by God to hide the Nephilim from us so they couldn't influence us anymore? Because if we could still see them, then they'd still influence us and talk to us and teach us things and send us down sinful paths and the rest of it. So that's my own working theory there, but I'm starting to think that's really
I think that's a great I really like that theory, actually. You know, I've always said that I believe that we as humans have been governed, or like, I don't mean like a government governing us, but I mean like we have been reduced in our abilities, you know, in seeing things. I believe that we're kind of like muffled down, and that would go along with that theory as well. That it's like, yeah, we're going to reduce it, but I was assuming it was as the government, like the hidden hand doing that to us. But what you're saying is it was done out of compassion to protect us from, you know, all this negativity and these disembodied spirits,
demons, basically. Which there's a lot of them from what I hear. You know, there's legions of them, and it's kind of, we could perceive the DMT realm all the time, which, by the way, is a perfectly normal, natural place that needs to exist in order for this world to exist. In fact, it is this world. It's the same thing. You know, I like to call it the plumbing of the universe. It's the code behind the projection. You know, it's the pipe behind the walls. You know, they need to be there for reality to exist. It is a part of reality. It's the cogs behind the clock face. It's kind of, it has to be there, but you don't have to be there to have a life. You know what I mean? It's perfectly a necessary function, but now there's ghosts in the machine. You know, there's demons in there. There's disembodied spirits in it. And it's kind of, they've tricked us into thinking we're going somewhere special when we do drugs, and we want to be where they are. But we're told by Jesus, when a demon's cast out of a human body, They wander in dry places and they hunger and thirst and are desperate to get back into a vessel again, just to experience some semblance of normality and sense or experience, because they don't have bodies, they don't have senses, they don't have eyes, noses, mouths, ears, tongues, fingers. They can't touch, feel, taste, smell, hear anything. And they're desperate for a body to do it again, because it's hell for them to be in that realm. We're lucky when we smoke DMT, we come back after like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Imagine an eternity there. I think we don't realize quite what that's like. You know, it's absolute torture. And these entities, that's what the possession is all about. They're desperate to get in your body and use your senses to experience things that they can no longer do without a body. They're in the realm of disembodied forms. We're in the realm of embodied forms. This is the prize where we are. But we're kind of being tricked today with the New Age to believe that we're kept trapped in our flesh prisons by a cruel, vindictive God who wants to keep us down, who's limited our perceptions and made us weaker than our full godly potential, which is basically just the serpent in the Garden of Eden saying, you will be as gods, just do what I say. You know? But the truth is, we're actually...
I was saying, yeah, the New Age, like, and I was part of it. I was all in the New Age as well, and it's a quagmire. It's there to get you stuck and staying in this one position and seeing it only in one way. But, I do know people who have broken free, and after you kind of have this realization, and I do believe there was some good with it. I do, but being stuck in it is the evil of it all, that you don't see past. And everybody, and it's the like you're saying, it's like this, we're stuck in these flesh bodies, and they're like, oh, we're these benevolent spirits, and we're so powerful, but we have to be in these physical bodies. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Yeah, we are these spirits, but we're having a physical experience so that we can understand what is to be physical. So don't think like I need to leave this body. That's not the point of what we're here for. The point is to be in this physical realm.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is God's creation, and he's gifted you a soul, a spirit, and a body that work simultaneously as one thing. They're not separate from each other. And that's how you can have a sense experience. That's how you can live. That's how you can love and laugh and grow and learn, by being here right now. And there's a lot of truth in the New Age perspectives about the creation and the nature of reality. And, absolutely, but they deny the creator, and they end up inverting it and saying, I made this, I'm doing this, it's me. It's a projection of my conscious and will, and it's do what thou wilt be shall be the whole of the law type of attitude, and I am a god. And it always ends up defaulting to, we are all collectively God and one consciousness, and we're all pretending to not be God so we can all feel like being individuals or something like that. It's kind of, we're all God, but we've all forgot that we're God so we can have fun, basically. But we're all one. We're all this. I am you and you are me, and it's kind of no. That's where there's a creator and we are separate from him, and he wants to have a relationship with us, and he sent his son to give us that bridge and have that relationship, basically. And that's actually way more psychedelic and trippy than every other religion on the earth. It's actually and it's more freeing as well, because like you said, the people who get stuck in the quagmire, as you call it, which is a good word for it, of New Age, they end up not progressing much in their life. Unfortunately, they really don't. They don't grow, because they don't think there's any point to this existence in the physical fleshly sense. So they don't pursue things which God wants you to have in your life, that he's gifted you, like a family, children, responsibility, friends, knowledge, experience, all the rest of it. The life he has mapped out for you is the life you want. He's waiting for you to take it, But if you want to go your own way, go roll around with the pigs and see how, you'll get sick of it eventually. It's that kind of thing, But and he'll let you do that. He gave you free will. But the truth is, like, you are not a god. You are so far removed from God, and you are a sinner. We're all sinners, and it's okay, because he sent his son to die for those sins, and you're forgiven. But if all you have to do is just believe on him, and you'll be saved in the next life, and you'll get to have the new heaven and earth and be a part of the kingdom. It's something else. It's way better than anything the New Age has to offer up, which is basically some kind of egotistical death cult mentality. Let's kill lots of people so there's less consciousness, so it's more concentrated, so we're stronger collectively type of attitude. It can lead to some really dark paths when you lead New Age belief systems to their logical conclusions. It really does. And it's all covered up in this veneer of love and light and freedom and consciousness, man. But it really isn't. It's Luciferianism at its core.
Yes.
It's all Luciferianism by a different name. And
I agree.
and it's dark, man. So like I said, anyway, let's get back on track. So,
Yeah,
I can
let's
talk
reel
about
it back in.
anything
Yeah,
for hours, you know. But
and hey, I'm having a great conversation too. This is fantastic.
yes, you know, we're talking about clowns here. So, like I said, 2016 clown sightings happened, and the connections happened in my brain. All the synapses fired, and I knew there's something to do with clowns, jesters, Nephilim, and demons. There's something here. Just from all these experiences, the research I've been doing, my own walk through life and things I'd seen, like the Jester vision and the Hat Man vision, which, by the way, when I had the dream of that Hat Man, he looked like some kind of psychedelic Morris dancer pimp. He had a big purple fedora hat on, a cane, a big purple trench coat with multicolored ribbons just flying around him, you know. And I was like, what a colorful psychedelic monster. It was terrifying. He was coming to kill me, and I knew he was. You know, he was like, but he looked colorful. I'm not going to lie. He looked insane. And it's like something's going on here with clowns and demons. So I did a cursory search, and nothing was out there in the world. No one had ever once made the connection. Like, it just doesn't exist, you know, not in the sense I'm talking about here. Maybe there was one guy who made a joke about the Nephilim were basically interdimensional killer clowns from out of space, but he was having a laugh. He wasn't a conspiracy theorist. He was mocking people who believe in the Nephilim. So he made like a mockumentary in the style of the History Channel. And he talked about the Nephilim, you know, and they have red skin and white hair. It's a white skin and red hair. And it's like, there's only one explanation. They're interdimensional killer clowns from out of space, you know, and he shows all these silly images and honks the horns and everything. And he's trying to mock us. He's trying to say anyone who believes in anything spiritual is an absolute moron, is what he was trying to do there, you know. Yeah. But when he said that, I was like, I'm already there myself, but mate, you have no idea how right you might actually be, is what I thought, you know what I mean? So I left it at that, and I've rolled with the idea, and 44 episodes later, a book later, writing the second volume right now, because it's becoming a 600-page, 800-page epic. I've just published the first 300 pages, and this actually goes way deep. This gets dark. This involves secret societies who invented the clown costume. This involves the entire history of clown history and modeled after demons throughout its very inception. This has everything to do with ancestor spirit worship cultures found all over the earth who venerate the spirits and channel the spirits by dressing like them in their rituals, and they all dress like clowns as well. We in the West have just invented our own version of the same costume that we call a clown. They don't call them that in these other cultures. They call it something very sacred, very important, very intimate to their religions and their ancestors. They don't mean grandma or granddad. They mean the Nephilim, and they dress like them to channel them, to be possessed by them. And they dress exactly what we would call in our language in the West a clown. And that's because the clown was a purposely invented costume by secret societies as a tool for channeling demons, but the public aren't supposed to know that. It's an esoteric, occult symbol. And all my work with the receipts and everything has backed this up. It's actually very obvious when you actually start to look for it. It's always been there. And that's what my work has been trying to show clearly for a long time. And I just want to make it clear. I don't care about clowns. I'm not some guy who's grown up obsessed about clowns. I'm not a juggalo. I don't care about the Joker or any iteration version of it. I don't read comic books or anything. I couldn't care less about clowns. But somehow I've inadvertently become the foremost prominent history on clown history, like expert on clown history and the rest. But more so than anything, my work is a love letter to the psychedelic community. I want them to know that you're not going to find the answers in the drugs themselves, but if you apply a biblical historical lens onto the things you're experiencing, you'll understand the truth finally, and you can finally contextualize your experiences in a way that's real, tangible, and useful for you. I'm trying to reach this lost generation who are looking for God through entheogens to say the truth is in Christ. Believe me, I was you. You know, and this book bridges that gap, I feel. I've had many people telling me it was the work on the clown topic specifically that got them to God, because it gave them a context they could understand, so like a hook to latch onto, which led them down the rabbit holes that they need to go down. Prior to that, there was nothing that inspired them enough to take it seriously, to take biblical history seriously. But when you understand that the Nephilim are a wholly biblical concept, and are only thoroughly explained through the biblical narrative. And every other culture calls them something else. They all talk about them. The evidence is everywhere. They are all over the place. And wherever they're actually depicted, it's like a serpent human, big, wide, grinning, tongue sticking out, bulging eyed, wild red haired, pale skinned monster. Because that's what they looked like. And that's what the clown costume is based upon. And that's what my work has summarized over 6 years. And that's how I got there. There it is.
Wow. Okay. That was quite the answer as well. Now, these clown costumes, like, do you think that's also why stilts are incorporated as well, is to elevate and get that giant, taller height as well?
Sure thing. So let's break down a clown costume, a stereotypical modern Western clown costume as understood whenever used as a stereotype. So big, puffy, red wig. The Nephilim predominantly had red hair. It's documented everywhere that was the main colored hair that they had, red. And I'm not talking about slightly orange human ginger. I'm talking about blood red, vampiric, unnatural, never seen before in human beings red, and never will be seen in human beings red. Okay? People think like what I'm talking about is like ginger people. That's just human beings who have a melanin problem. It has nothing to do with the Nephilim. Okay, the Nephilim were not human. They were human angelic hybrids. They were something else. Okay, so that's dispelled that eugenics, Neanderthal, something or other. People like to incorporate nonsense evolutionary theory into my work. It's like nothing to do with that. We're talking about monsters here, and they had blood red hair and golden hair. It's either one of the two, gold or blood red, but predominantly blood red. They always have pale white skin, and I'm talking like this microphone. So not slightly rosy or ruddy or peachy like a white person. Dead, vampiric, leprosy, ashy, white, clown makeup white. White. I can't explain. Your background, white. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This is like, and people, that's why I'm trying to say, I'm not talking about pale-skinned, redhead people like ginger people. Ginger people don't even have red hair. They have orange hair. It's kind of, people need to get that out of their head,
You're talking Ronald McDonald kind of
this
thing.
Is something else, like Ronald McDonald, a stereotypical looking thing. So the Nephilim do have that base feature. That's the basic of a Nephilim, white skin, red hair. That is the base. But I do think because they were psychedelic in nature, they had seraphim serpent skin amalgamated with human skin, like a hybrid between the two. So they would have been very colorful. The skin would have had patterns on it, like a snake or a reptile or an iguana or a gecko or anything like that. Nature has a very colorful palette when it comes to the reptilians on the earth, any reptile. And I think the Nephilim would have been very colorful. It would have been, the face might have had like white skin and they might have had a white base canvas, but on that white base would have been swirls, patterns of colors, blocks of colors here and there. And clown makeup is usually all about that. Blocks, polka dots, triangles on the face, on the cheeks, wherever it is. And the costume is very colorful of a clown. Polka dots, stripes, patterns, zigzags, like a serpent skin, like a snake. That's what the costume is supposed to be. It's a caricature, cartoonified image of Nephilim features. And that's the point of the costume. It's to emphasize and play on Nephilim features, because they're trying to mirror something in the spirit realm to channel them, like all these other cultures do all over the earth. Okay, so that's the point. So you just need enough base features to create that connection to the spirit realm. So the costume, the face, the hair, look at the makeup on the eyes. You find often they have high brow ridges painted on.
Yeah.
And that's because the Nephilim had very large eyes. And usually it's shaded in blue. And when the artist closes their eyes, it looks like they have giant, big, glowing eyes. That's the point of the makeup. Or a slit, 2 slits going right down the pupil. Big ones, big lines. Slit pupils are predominantly a predator trait, more so found in reptiles than any other species on Earth. You have like a few cats that do it, 1 species of bird, and I think 1 species of canid, which is like a coyote of some kind, that have a slit pupil, but predominantly reptilian feature. It's because the Nephilim were half reptilian, half human, and had big predator eyes that glowed. So that's what the makeup is trying to mirror in the spirit realm, the eyes of the Nephilim. The big red nose that you see common on most clowns, that's actually a real genetic condition that predominantly pale-skinned people suffer from. Now, any race can suffer from this, even humans. But if you have very pale skin, you'll often suffer something called rosacea. Okay, now
Yeah.
rosacea is where you get red blotches all over the skin that can get very painful actually and burst out in blisters and stuff like that in extreme cases. But they call it end stage rosacea, and it's called a rhinophyma. It's like the worst possible way rosacea can manifest in pale skinned creatures and people is that the nose starts to grow and it gets really big and bulbousy until it's a big red ball on the face. It's called a rhinophyma. And it's basically just pus and fat and tissue that's just like exponentially grown. And people with rhinophymas look like they have an enormous red, horrible looking clown nose. And the only way to get rid of it is they get a hot wire and they shave it off and resculpt the nose back into a human shape again.
God.
That's the only way you can get rid of it. Okay, so there's no
no, thank you. Yeah,
you can't like put some cream on it or something.
yeah,
like,
exactly.
And this is a genetic condition called, and it's linked to hemochromatosis, another predominantly pale-skinned issue. It's called the curse of the Celts for this reason. It's predominantly pale-skinned people who get these rhinophymas. Now, the Nephilim had the whitest skin ever seen on the earth. It's likely they also suffered from this end-stage rosacea genetic condition inherited from the humans, where their noses became big and red and round as they got older. And there's a myth out there that drunks get this kind of nose. Old drunk men. It's nothing to do with alcohol. It has nothing to do with it. I've looked into this. Honestly, I've got the medicine. I've read the papers. It's entirely genetic. It's entirely genetic.
What's funny is that when you're talking all about this, I remember because my family was really strict Catholics and we went to Catholic church all the time. There was one guy and he had this type of nose, and as a younger kid, I was like 12 years old. All I could think about is, oh, he must be a drunk. He must be a drunk. But you've just, and while you're talking, that's all I was thinking about. And you just corrected me. So I made an assumption for, over 30 years now that has now been corrected.
Well, the story goes that a clown in Germany fell over after being kicked out of the dressing room by the manager onto the stage while the show was going on, and he broke his nose, and his nose swelled up and he was bleeding everywhere, and the whole crowd laughed and called him August, which means fool, basically, fool. And it was such a big hit. Everyone thought it was so funny to have this huge red nose that it kind of stuck. But there's no evidence for that ever happening anywhere. There's no historical documentation of that actually happening anywhere. It's just like an old wives' tale. And the other excuse is that the August clown wears the red nose because it represents a drunk, someone who drinks too much, and often these early clowns with the red nose were called things like brandy or whiskey and things like this because they were named after the spirits that cause these things. But when you actually look into the condition of a rhinophyma, it has nothing to do with alcohol. It's a genetic condition. You're either going to get it or you're not. You can never touch a drop of alcohol in your entire life and it can still happen to you because you have the genetic predisposition for it to happen to you. That's all it is, But these myths surrounding it are from like an accident in alcohol in clowning. But when you actually look into where the origin of the clown costume comes from, it's kind of like, no, this makes more sense. It's a Nephilim feature that they've made up a story for. You know what I mean? So no one will think twice about why they do it and why clowns wear red noses. But really, they're trying to emulate something in the spiritual realm that would have had that type of feature, which is the Nephilim, by virtue of their pale skin and this genetic condition. So it's a real thing. Look it up. So that's the makeup, that's the costume, that's the hair. They often have big gloves because they have giant hands because they're giants, big shoes because they're giants. They walk around on stilts, as you mentioned, because they're giants. They come out of tiny cars because they're giants. Many are crammed into one tiny car because a car represents the human body in symbolic terms, and the demons are legion, and many demons are in one body at any one time. So when multiple clowns come out of a tiny car, that's legions of demons coming out of a human body. It's all metaphorical, tongue-in-cheek, symbolic references to Nephilim demonic stuff. Circuses have always been a Freemason creation. From the very beginning, Freemasonry in America, the big top tents have all been run by Freemasonry. They all got together, in fact, and put on a giant show called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba in the late 1800s, I think it was, around that time, mid 1870, give or take. And 10 Freemasonic run circuses got together, put on a giant show, traveled all throughout America, and they recreated the Grand Court of Solomon and all the animals. And there was about 2,000 actors from all these troops involved in this, like 500 animals or something stupid. And it's because they're obsessed with King Solomon in Freemasonry. They love the guy. He was like the first master mason, you know what I mean? And the old Jewish myth goes that he was given a ring by the angels to control demons. And he used the ring to control the demons in order to build the temple. Okay. So you look at a circus and you realize that the ring master, the ring leader of the circus, the ring master with the black top hat, is the master of the ring. He's the lord of the ring, and he orchestrates the ritual to make the clowns do the performance. But when you look at a Freemason lodge, the only person allowed to wear a black top hat is the Grand Worshipful Master, because he represents King Solomon. Not even hidden. That's actually on the public Freemason website. They'll tell you that. Okay. And that's because a black top hat represents the crown of the king, King Solomon. And they've just basically, King Solomon uses his ring to control the demons to build the temple. The ring master of a circus controls the ring to control the clowns to do the performance. It's an analog for a King Solomon ritual. And that same ritual is performed in lodges all around in Freemasonry. But they just put it on a grand public scale, buried under layers of nuance and symbolism. But those who are in the know full well what was going on. And you can find documentation of this early giant show where it's like Freemasons would go, the initiates would go and be in awe at seeing the tiny little lodge ritual done on such a grand scale. But the public would go and not think anything of it. They just think it's a bit of fun for the kids, It's kind of, and they've paid to be a part of the ritual, and they're giving it energy that they otherwise wouldn't have had,
I was just going to ask that. Yeah. Like these circuses and these performances, they're rituals. And like the masses that are taking part of it, they are, they're being part of it unbeknownst, but they're part of this. They're part of this performance.
Think about a circus or a carnival. It's flashing lights, spinning wheels, noise. Bang, 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 flash, 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 multicolored lines, colors, movement constantly. That's the DMT realm. They're mirroring the DMT realm where these spirits reside, but just in a physical sense. They're creating a mirror of the realm, and the carnival or the circus is where the clowns are. Well, the DMT realm is where the Nephilim are. It's this mirrors. They're trying to mirror something in the spirit realm to create channels to the physical realm. That's all it's ever. That's all ritual. That's all the occult is. That's what witchcraft is. That's all it's ever been. That's what magic is. Real magic, And it's been right in front of our faces the entire time, is what I'm trying to say here, And you look at the first early circuses as well, Phineas Taylor Barnum in America. He was like an old businessman by this point, a proper charlatan. He started the freak show and added it to the circus. But he was the one who invented the 3-ringed circus. Is it no coincidence that 3 interlocking rings is the logo for the Order of the Oddfellows, of which he was a member? So he just put his lodges, his particular sect of Freemasonry's logo into the circus map. He included it into it by inventing a 3-ring circus. It's all Freemasonic run. Even today, the Shriners pretty much run every single circus in America.
Yep.
All of them. And there's the odd outlier here and there, but the big ones with the money behind it, all Freemason Shriner led. Why do Shriners all have a clown section? They all have a little sect that dresses like clowns in each one of them. Why does a Middle Eastern
and they always drive little cars, and they have their red hats as well,
with little fezzes on, But why does a Middle Eastern themed sect of Freemasonry have anything to do with the Western clown?
Right.
But what has that got to do with anything, And I've done some work on this on the book, and it's probably only so much you can really say. But
I was gonna say that kind of brings me to. It's like, from your research, do you see any signs of modern day Nephilim-like figures or symbols in our society beyond the classic image of the clown? But you're giving us that in a way, like these, the Shriners as well. They are dressing like clowns a little bit, but there's still a lot of connections. But do you see any other figures or symbols in our society now that are kind of representative of the Nephilim?
Well, first of all, just to box off the shrining stuff.
Yes, please.
So just they all have their own lodge and their Shriners, and they all claim it's to entertain dying children in the tax haven hospitals. But people have done work looking into this tax avoidance, basically, and all the money they're claiming to save on taxes mysteriously disappearing in ways that are very dodgy, and they're fudging the numbers, and they keep getting caught out on this. So it's odd. But to imagine that a dying child finding a clown at the foot of his bed in his last moments, a clown can either elicit extreme fear or extreme joy. And I think demons feed off energy. And that Shriner, who is channeling a demon in front of a dying child, is feeding the demon through the child's fear and energy. It's kind of like I think that's probably what the Luge farms will call those Shriner hospitals. You know what I mean? And I think there's a fine line between laughter and fear, and whether the clown makes you laugh or makes you recoil in fear, it's all energy to the demon. So it's fine. The clown's perfect for that, But yeah, in terms of like after that, if you want to go a step above shrining, you can by invite only, and they're only taking 13 members a year. You can become a member of the Royal Order of the Jesters. And why is that the pinnacle of Freemasonry? Being a jester. It doesn't make any sense until you bring my work into this and you realize they're venerating their gods, which are the Nephilim, which they're in communication with, who look like jesters and clowns. And the Royal Order of the Jesters, I can't even talk about publicly what they have got into, okay, because it's too dark, it's not friendly for like podcast or anywhere really. And they are the worst of the worst people you'll ever meet in your entire life. They are sadists, okay? They are the worst, and they've been caught. There is even, just go and find the released FBI files from the court cases involving the members of this organization. That's public. You can go find them. They are out there if you go digging enough. But most of their stuff has been scrubbed from the internet. And I found what you can find. It's in my book, just publicly. What's available, what's legally available. But what's not legally available. You can't even imagine. It gets really dark. So that's that. That's the Freemasonic up to the Jesters type of ladder there. That involves the circus, the clown, and the creation of it. But I didn't even give you the history. It goes back to the 1800s. The modern clown costume basically comes from Joseph Grimaldi, who's equated to being the father of all modern clowns. Now, Joseph Grimaldi was just an actor, and I'm very quickly summarizing here a lot of work, okay? A lot of work and a lot of history backing this up. But he was basically just an actor working at the time for the son of a Freemason called Charles Dibdin. And Charles Dibdin Jr. was given this little theater called Sadler's Wells, where Joseph Grimaldi as an actor was working at the time. And he kind of was forced to give Joseph the leading role as a clown because Joseph had married the daughter of the owner of the theater, Richard Hughes. So when Charles Dibdin was hired as the showrunner, the boss came up to him and says, "You better give my son-in-law a leading role." You know what I mean? And the only reason he had to do that is because Joseph's wife, Richard Hughes' daughter, died at childbirth, and so did the baby. And she basically said to Richard, "Look after Joe." That was a dying wish. So to look after Joe, he went up to Charles Dibdin, who he just hired, this young son of a very famous Freemason, and we'll get into that, and said, "You better make him a leading actor in this next show." So he did, and he dressed him in a brand new costume, which looked like a psychedelic fractal monster demon we call a clown today. The very first time anything like that had even been seen in public. Prior to that, the character of clown, who's based on the Italian Pedrolino or the French Poirot, wore white. Nothing but white. Completely loose white rags. He was meant to be a servant character of the rich man. But suddenly, this son of a Freemason comes along and dresses him like a Indian demon. And I mean that very literally. It turns out Charles Dibdin Sr., his dad, who was a member of the Leicestershire Lodge, very, very famous Freemason, wrote a lot of music, very famous at the time. He is world renowned even today. His music is played at the end of the proms in Britain. He is like, at the time, in the 1799, when this was happening, 1800, he's like a P. Diddy of the time. He is like the worst possible music industry mogul you could imagine. He was a big deal, and his son was given this job running up a theater. It's a pure nepotism, but his son dressed this character, Joseph Grimaldi, like a demon because his father was obsessed with India. His father was always traveling to India. His father's brother, Thomas, died in India, colonizing the place with the East India Company. Charles Dibdin Sr. was going to move to India, but decided against it because bad weather stopped his ship from setting off. And back then, you'd die in bad weather trying to sail to another country, you know, so it's a big deal. But he changed his mind and stayed in England. But he knew India intimately. And it's no coincidence that this costume looks identical. And I mean, put the pictures side by side. It's the same costume worn by the Rakshasa demons on the Thailand temples. He looks like a Taiwanese Rakshasa demon. Like, and it's like they didn't even like hide that they assumed most people wouldn't know, but it's just a carbon copy, and it's actually weird. It's very weird. When I've shown it many times on my channel, visually speaking, the images have always come up.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna post that actually as we're talking here, so people watching.
There's a video on my channel. Maybe watch the most recent. It's one of the more recent ones. I think it's like episode like 42 or something like that, and it shows the Rakshasa demons and the clown. There's like three faces all next to each other, and it's showing the dragon, the Rakshasa, and the clown, and how they all look the same. I think it's episode 40. It's either 42 or 43. It went viral. It's got like something like 300,000 views now or something silly. Or, I don't know. But that one basically showcases all of these things I'm talking about. And what I'm saying is the very first true clown costume, which all modern costumes are based upon, all credit was given to the actor who wore the costume, but it was actually created by the son of a Freemason, was literally copied after Indian versions of the Nephilim, the Rakshasas. So clowns have always been a representation of demons. Prior to that, the only thing close to a clown-looking character was Harlequin, who was all through the Middle Ages, or the late Middle Ages, 1500s onwards, was like a club-wielding, acrobatic, demonic, cheeky character, you know, in this thing called the Comédie de l'Art, which is like a troupe of actors who put on random shows in villages, you know, traveling from scene to scene. Well, Harlequin is modeled after the Wild Man of Europe, which is the Europeans' flavor of the Rakshasa, which is the wild man brute covered in hair, multicolored patches of skin with a giant club. And he was a giant who ate men. And that's what Harlequin's based on. So Harlequin's based after the European version of the Nephilim called the Wild Man. Wow. And then you fast forward, the clown is modeled after the Indian version of the Wild Man, the Rakshasa. So it's always been demonic. There's never been a point where it hasn't been demonic. In fact, we just don't know that. And then today, that costume has been modeled and copied and copied and copied into what we have today, the red afro, red nose, polka dot wearing clown. But it's all modeled after the Rakshasa demons of India. So that's the history. So in terms of going back, fast forwarding today, you'll find that this method, I mean, circuses are old. We don't really do circuses anymore. We have TV now. We have music. We have stages. We have the music industry and film industries and stuff like that. So you'll always see a popularization of the clown throughout media. There'll always be a reboot of it. There'll always be a new Joker coming out. There'll always be a new horror slasher involving a clown in some way coming out. They'll always be keeping it in the consciousness of humanity just before Halloween, so people dress like clowns. And we'll always have an obsession or idolization of clowns in some way, because the more people you get dressing like clowns, the more channels you're opening up for the Nephilim to possess people's bodies. That's the game. And there's also a transactional thing here. You can dress like a demon, channel a demon, and get power from the demon. That's what all these other tribes are doing, who dress like clowns all across the earth in these ancestor spirit worship tribes. It's no different in the West, but it's a secret here. It's like a secret hidden technique. And it's no surprise that in the music industry, if you dress like a psychedelic, fractal, pale white-skinned, redhead clown monster, you will end up being a god in the music industry. And in death, you'll be elevated to godlike status, just like David Bowie did with his Iggy Stardust character, because that's the real secret of the music industry. It's not having talent. It's basically dressing like a clown. The more you dress like a clown, the more the Freemasons who run the industry will select you and put the spotlight on you, put you on the radio, put you on the stage. Then people will look at you and go, wow, I want to be famous just like them. How do they do it? Well, I guess I should start dressing like them first. Okay. Then you get more people copying the idols who are dressing like the Nephilim. And then more people dress like the Nephilim and make more channels. They're in the industry of making idols who look like clowns because they want more people copying them. So more people dress like clowns. And then the more channels get opened. It's a very dark industry secret, and that's the real secret. And knowing even wearing a top hat is one of them, because that's channeling Solomon or the king of the demons in some way, the Hatman character. And people like, let's say, Slash is a good example of this, isn't it? You know, but there's Alice Cooper as well with his snake around his thing, looking like Baron Samedi from the Haitian Vodou culture. And it's kind of, that's another thing. It's kind of, you dress like the thing to channel the thing. And all these musicians who have these wacky, colorful costumes. It's like, they're not dressing like that just to be, you know, edgy. They're channeling something. And they're probably gaining skill they don't prior otherwise have from it in some way. It's a deal. There's a deal being made. There's a contract. In these tribes in Africa, when they channel the ancestors, there's a contract. It's kind of, I'll let you use my body, and I'll drink blood and smoke cigars and drink whiskey and have sex and do drugs or whatever while you're in my body, so you can feel all those pleasurable things. But in return, I want the ability to not be stabbed. I want the ability to, you know, be able to jump really high or have the strength of 10 men or read minds or something. And the demon will give the person who has made the deal with those abilities in exchange for stuff, for pleasure. And that's the deal. And in Africa, when you've got tribal warfare going on, it's very useful to not have to be stabbed by a dagger. It's very useful to have these abilities, you know, and it's kind of, it's the secrets. I think there's actually quite a famous, is it people keep sending me, is like is a kickboxer or a UFC fighter. I think he's either like Mexican or I don't know where he is. I don't want to say, but yeah, he's known for channeling the ancestors, and he dresses up in paint and stuff like this, and he's like unstoppable. And he tells you it's because of the ancestors. I'm channeling their spirits, and they're giving me the strength to beat these people, you know. And it's kind of, he's always shown wearing really colorful stuff and like clothing, and it's kind of, because they don't mean grandma or granddad. That's not what they mean by ancestors. They mean the ancient primordial gods who built their civilization. They're referring to the Nephilim, who subjugated all of humanity in an ancient time and became the kings and rulers of an antediluvian age. They're talking about those ancestors. And that's what these other cultures do. They dress like them, channel them, get stuff from them. We're doing the same thing in the West, but the costume we wear, we call a clown. And we've all been brainwashed to believe a clown is just something silly for kids. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Wow. I think that's pretty much the bow tie on it all right there, wrapping it all up. And don't mind the pun of the bow tie, the large bow ties on there. Yes. It's
the tiny umbrella or the tiny teacup, whatever makes them seem like giants in comparison, eh?
Exactly. Or the huge sunglasses, you know, they wear the huge sunglasses as well. This has been extremely fascinating and eye-opening, and I really hope my viewers and listeners, you know, take something out of this, you know, and they realize that let's try that again. So can you hear me now?
I really hope my viewers take something out of this.
Yeah. I really hope my viewers take something out of this. It's, you know, that what they see all these rituals going on, and to, you know, to be conscious of what is actually happening, and perhaps to step away and step out and step away from these rituals and not take part of them. Like, you know, the Olympics, we all know that there's rituals going on with that all the time. And they're not what they are pretending.
I'm going to stop you there, Rye. I'm going to stop you there. It's crackling, and you just went out. So you don't want that picking up. Can you not hear me? Okay.
Okay. Did you lose me?
I can't hear you. Nothing. Try again. Nothing. I got nothing. No.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it was crackling. Just keep talking, see if it crackles or anything.
Maybe I'll go up and I'll come back in.
Let's just restart the call.
Oh.
Yeah. See what happens. I'll stay here.
One last time. No?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
It's catching up. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so let's just give it a couple seconds here. Where did it end at? Where was I? Because I know in the beginning.
What do we say? You said no. It was awful. It was crackling the whole time you were speaking. So you may as well just start again with your point. To be honest. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do the. I hope my viewers and man, I was going on. I had great like monologue going on and. Okay, so let's try this again.
It's still crackling every now and then. There's like a crackling over your speaking. Like, is your connector? Is it inked properly? The connector into your laptop. It's that kind of sound you get when you move it in the jack, and it's like crackling.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Is it okay?
It sounds clear. Yeah.
Okay. I plugged it into a whole new connection. Okay.
That sounds good.
So
sounds really good.
It's still recording. I'll just finish this and we're pretty much done anyhow. But that's crazy. You know, it's like
there's always something.
Lovely.
There's always something. Trust me. I've done plenty of these now. I'm not surprised. It's fine. So where did you leave off? It said
I was saying, I hope my viewers and listeners take away from this. So I'll start right from there.
Sure.
I hope my viewers and listeners take away from this that what appears to be some like a show or is in fact sometimes just a ritual. We're seeing these clowns all dressed up, or we're seeing these performers dressed up, and we think, oh, this is just just some sort of show we're watching. But it's more than that. A lot of these things have, and like like these the Shriners, and we're talking about these circuses. It's not what we think it is. It's something much more deeper. It's something much more sinister as well. Especially take the Olympics, for example. We always see something going on there. Those who can see, we can never stop unseeing now. Like it's been ripped open. We see it for what it is. It's not just, this is just an art performance. No, it's something more now. And I hope they can take away as well from this, like from your book as well, that there's so much more to it than we actually know. And I hope people get inspired and they start to go on their own journeys and their own discoveries as well. And who knows what else we can come up with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Look, public ritual is what it is. It's kind of this is how the occult works. There's like two worlds living here that we exist in. And either you know about it or you don't, basically. And there's the world as we've been presented that we're supposed to interpret things as and understand it to be, which is kind of like, we'll call it a matrix. I don't want to say that because I'm not like a Gnostic demiurge type guy who thinks God's evil and created a prison world for us. I'm saying the evil people have invented a narrative which we believe we're a part of and we're acting out for them. And they've kind of created a false world for us to believe we're a part of, in a sense, a false story in a way. and they are the playwriters, they are the story writers, they are the script writers, and it's their script we're playing out. And what God wants us to do is break free from that. So whenever you see anything happening in the public arena, like a giant ritual, let's say the Olympics, or a circus, or a show, or a film, or a music piece, or whatever it is, art in general, there's two ways it's supposed to be interpreted. Like the circus, you're supposed to see it as just fun for the kids, a fun day out for the family, silly people doing silly things, tricks and animals. On a occult hidden level, the initiated, those people living in the other world of the two worlds I mentioned, know it's an invocation ritual for demons. And they're using your energy to fuel it, basically. And that's it. That's how the occult works. That's spiritual warfare at its finest. You know, your ignorance is what makes them powerful in a sense. Now, have no fear, because they're a defeated enemy, and if we just realize our authority given to us through Jesus Christ to tread on serpents, their rituals have zero power over us and are in fact just parlor tricks, smokes and mirrors. It's useless. You know, if you are aware of demons and understand where they come from, which my research will give you context to understand, the first half of the book, the first 10 chapters, is literally just biblical history and where the Nephilim came from. Straight up explained from start to finish in a very easy, abridged, summarized way that anyone can understand, and it'll give you solid context for the rest of the research to explain the clown, the occult connection, and then the ancestor spirit worship surrounding it as well. Get to grips with spiritual warfare, guys. It's real. It's very real, and I hope my book can get you there. And if you look, there isn't a single person alive on this earth who has not encountered the demonic. They might not admit it. They might never talk about it. They might be too embarrassed or scared of being called crazy. Or they might be talking about it nonstop like me. Who knows? But all I'm saying is everybody's dealt with these things at some point. And if we can all know that they are defeated and we have all the authority to cast them out in the name of Jesus, they would have nothing. They would have nothing.
I believe that there's actually also people who don't know that they're dealing with demonic as well. There is that section of people as well. It's, you need to come to a realization that, like you said, we are in a spiritual war. This is something, this is a fact. Mm-hmm. And when you start to realize it, then you start to see it. And I agree, you know, we all need to come to grips with it and come back to faith and learn how much power we really have over these things, and how much power they don't have over us.
Well, it's war. It's war. I'm not joking. It's Ephesians 6:12. You know, we don't battle against flesh and blood. We battle against principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places, hidden forces, you know, that work in darkness. It's a war. You know, we're called to put on the full armor of God and be foot soldiers on the front lines of this war. And it's not people we're really against. It's spirits here. And now, look, I'm not trying to abdicate humanity of sin. We're sinners. We make mistakes. We do bad things. We have capacity for evil. But we also out there have the devil wandering around like a roaring lion, seeking whoever he might devour. You know, we have enemies out there as well, spiritually speaking, too, who are not working for us and are working against us. And I think that element of existence, once people comprehend that, things do start to make a lot more sense very quickly. You know, it's I feel like the atheistic, secular 3D realm is all that exists. Sensory experience narrative is falling apart. I think, especially in these times, I think the obviously spiritual nature of reality is coming pretty obvious day by day. And I think these demonic forces are manifesting themselves as beings of light to many people. And like you said, many people do see them as good things, good entities, you know, but the DMT jesters, they are not your friends. They are not your friends, and I make that very clear. There's a reason they're there. They're not you talking to you about how you need to not take life too seriously or do the shadow work necessary to integrate your shadow or some Jungian bollocks. Like, they are separate entities from you who hate you, who have an agenda and are working against you and are there for a very historical, specific reason. Like, they are, it's literal, it's real, you know, it's not just some collective consciousness projection archetype. It's kind of a lot of these delusions need to drop and fall by the wayside. And I'm hoping people like me, people like you, what we're trying to do is normalize the Christian perspective and the spiritual aspects of reality. It's not, you're not crazy if you talk about these things. You're not schizo, as the common like new word is online to talk about schizo posting. It's kind of, no, this is just reality. This is the way it is. And don't let anyone shame you into not talking about the truth about the situation we're actually existing in. I take it very seriously. This is real. These things are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
I can't say it in any other way, shit. Like, they tried to kill me, and they're coming for you too. They're not your friends. They don't have your best interest at heart. They're not trying to help you become a god or something. They're working against you.
Yeah,
and get to know.
I agree, and I believe that they can appear that they're working for you. They can appear that they're there for your best interest, but they're doing it. They're manipulating you. They're doing that so they can have access to you. So they can have access to this realm, so they can get out of this disembodied spirit form and into, like you talked about earlier, into an actual physical body. They can, inhabit your body, and we have to be aware. We have to always be aware, always have our guard up, and protect ourselves.
I would just say, some people say they're out, like I said, it's all about possession. That's the game for them. How do I get into someone's vessel? The clown costume is just one tool in many methods to get to that end. Okay. If you dress like something in the spirit realm and create a mirror of it, you create a channel, and then you're giving an easier gateway for them to get to our side. People do it through drugs, dance as well, ritual, whatever it is. There's many ways you can do this. The costume is just one. Do them all together at the same time, you've got really something going on. You know what I mean? That's kind of how the game works. And I would say ignorance of the spiritual law, which is dress like the thing, channel the thing, won't make you like immune to it. So if you put on a costume, it's like, oh, I don't mean to channel demons. It doesn't matter. That's what happens. Like, it's kind of, your intention has zero effect on this, from what I'm finding. And most parasites don't like it when the host knows that they're there. So they'll try and stay hidden. They're not going to overplay their hand to people who don't believe in spirits. They'll gladly dwell in somebody who doesn't believe in them and pretend and try and make sure they never find out they're there. But they'll be subtly influencing the vessel to do the things the demon wants. But the person will think, I'm such a messed up freak. Oh, God, I need to see a therapist or something. Like, why do I keep having these horrible thoughts? What's wrong with me? And it's kind of like, it's not you. You're being influenced by a demon to do things, perverse things, destructive things, because it gains pleasure from it. You're just its current patsy. You're its current vessel. When it has no use for you anymore, it'll discard you and it'll try and kill you. So in my case, when I gave up the drugs, the promiscuous life, and the hedonistic lifestyle and gave myself to Christ, they tried to kill me. Prior to that, I didn't even know they existed. That's the point.
Yeah.
Once I gave myself to Christ, it was like, attack. Like, if we can't have him, nobody can. Let's kill him. But luckily, I took my authority in the name of Jesus and saved my life through Christ. Christ saved my life. I remembered Derek Prince saying, call on Jesus. If you're ever attacked, call on his name and he'll save you. And that's what I did. And it worked. It worked. Tangibly. Physical experience. It worked. I was about to die, practically having a brain aneurysm. And I'm back in the room instantly, because we don't battle against flesh and blood. It was a demonic attack. That's the world we live in, and that's all I can really say on it without repeating myself. But I think people get the gist of what I'm saying here.
Fantastic, Paul. I want to say thank you so much for spending time with us tonight, and and retelling your story. Your book. It's an inspiration to us all. Maybe not even just like an inspiration to learn more, but also just to follow your heart, follow your dream, follow inspiration. The path that you were given. Follow it, and look where it'll take you, which is amazing. So one last time, Paul, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? That'd be great.
Sure. So you can get the book on Amazon. Just type in the Nephilim Look Like Clowns. We've sold over 1,750 copies in the last 3 months. It's flying off the shelves. It's got a 4.8 review with 82 reviews, which is still technically 5 stars. They haven't taken a half star off me yet, so it's still going well there. But don't just believe the reviews. Read the book. It will help you. It might even save your life one day, is what I'm finding here. And again, I'm not saying all this comes from God. This is all just the truth of Jesus that was taught to me through research into the truth of the biblical perspective. I've just tried my best to relay it back to you, so go check it out. But if you want to find my work on every other topic out there under the sun in conspiracy realms, go to my YouTube channel, Understanding Conspiracy. I'm not just a one-trick pony. You'll find out when you get on there. I cover a lot of stuff, okay? Many facets of the conspiracy realm. So Understanding Conspiracy. If you're looking for some therapy yourself, if you're feeling a bit lonely out there as a truther, you can join my Telegram group, which It's called Understanding Conspiracy. We have 1,600 members on there. It's a strong, solid community, and we're always sharing and supporting each other and lifting each other up on there. Or join me in one of my live podcast shows, usually every Sunday, sometimes in between on a Wednesday, called the Truth or Therapy Sessions, where we just kick back and talk about our experiences and, try to just feel normal for 2 hours a week.
Fantastic. Again, Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
All right, everyone. That was Paul Stobbs. And what a fascinating discussion, about his book. I heard it before. I heard him talk before on Tinfoil Hats with Sam Tripoli, and it was captivating. And again, it really was. And Paul knows his stuff, which, I hope you take this with an open mind. It's very, very important that we have an open mind, but with the discretion, always make your own choices. Always you're the arbiter of your own truth. So take in all the truths, because there's a lot of truths, and then work with them yourself and find that path that is right for you, and reject anything that's evil. That's the bottom line. Always, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe. Very important. And as I always say, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home. I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.